Going? Are you well? As you can see, I look kind of a little tanned, but a little unshaven. It's probably because I got up this morning because I had a very a happy meeting at South Bank, and yeah, that kind of gives you a clue about what I've been working on. So South Bank on the 3rd of July is going to be something rather special. So yeah, I had that meeting, shaved this morning, and now look at me, typical Indian face. It's all just hairy again. Ridiculous. But welcome to this week's Insta Live. Hey, Amaya's here. Big love, Amaya. I'll wave at you. Yes. This week's guest is an old friend of mine. Now, I know I say this a lot about people that I chat to on my Insta Lives, but this is genuinely an old friend. We go so far back that I think before either of our careers really took off, before I was on Radio 1, before anything, we used to play the same clubs together, and he went on to become like a musical legend. It's of course joining me right now. I'm looking forward to seeing Paul Rose's lovely face. It's been a long time. Is he gonna accept my friendship? Yes, easy, Paul.
How you doing?
I'm good. Right? How are you, bro?
Yeah, not bad. I'm trying to get this volume up a little bit. Yeah, I'm good. Just enjoying the sunshine. Getting some rays, doing some work, basically.
Nice.
How about you?
Nice. Yeah, same thing. I'm darker than I've been for a long time, and I'm very happy about it. I've been like in the sun. It's making my white t-shirt and my silver nails pop. It's really weird. I look like some fucked up Wolverine walking around.
Those are some good nails.
Thanks, bro.
Those are some good nails.
Yeah.
I can't say.
They're blinding. Like in the park, when the sun hits it, people are just like, "What the fuck?" And like these sort of mirror reflections are fucking with their eyes. It's great. It's really good. It's actually really good for getting the attention at a bar. You want to get someone's attention.
Right, yeah, okay, yeah, that would make sense, yeah.
Garçon, like fuck, blinded. But yeah, how you been, bro? Right. You good? You're happy? All's well?
Yeah, man. I've been living in Spain since December, which has been a nice change, having been stuck in a flat in Hackney for the whole of 2020. Which got a bit old, as no doubt many people will be thinking the same of their own experience. But so I've just been in Palma and Mallorca since just before Christmas, and it's just been quite nice, really.
Nice.
I mean, it's been, as I said, a significant improvement than being locked down in London. But I feel lucky to be saying that, to be honest. I feel a bit guilty, actually, to be saying that. But
yeah. Well, at least you're aware of your privilege and not just posting up sunny pics on Instagram in December and like rubbing everyone's faces into it.
I'm super aware, man. I'm super aware.
It's like, hey, look at me, yeah, bastards. I'm glad you're not doing that. But talking about Hackney, and I was thinking about this, and I'm so happy that we get to catch up and reminisce, because we go back a long fucking way. Like a super long way, like pre-Hotflush recordings almost, right? So 2001, 2002 maybe is when our paths first crossed. In Herbal in Shoreditch.
Blimey, you must be right, because I was thinking it was like early 2000s, but it must be that long ago, man. 20 years ago. Wow. I just said that 20 years ago.
I know, it's fucking insane. And it was just like, I mean, like you said, Hackney again, it sort of triggered all these memories of like, I think we were both on like a Wednesday night lineup that was quite just upstairs at Herbal with Decline, I think.
Yeah, geez, that is a blast from the past. I hadn't even thought about that bit. Yeah, wow, okay. Yeah, because what was that night? What was it called that night? I remember.
I don't know. It had a rat on the flyer. It was like a black and white.
Oh, the Rat Records night. Yeah. Decline's Rat Records thing.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And it had and I remember this. It was like black and white, so almost hand drawn with a red stamp on it.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And it was when you and Sid were a duo as well.
Upstairs at Herbal. Yeah.
Yeah, upstairs at Herbal.
I played the first ever tunes that I wrote and got cut to play. I played at that night.
Wow.
I remember being extremely excited that I had A, cut some tunes to play, and B, played them, and C, they weren't a total disaster when I put them on. Do you know what I mean?
And it was also...
oh my God, I mean, this is a serious blast from the past, but I mean that because that reminds me of cutting dubs at a music house And yeah, I'm being in the queue between like DJ Hype and Storm, and just being like unbelievably starstruck. just so starstruck.
And you were kind of making like almost sort of like the darker side of garage at that point, right? If I'm not mistaken, like
Yeah,
pre
so
dubstep almost.
Yeah, it was kind of proto dubstep. So so Forward obviously started in 2001, but that was very much a garage night to start off with, and it was kind of that sort of crossover between like the sort of LB, a kind of like the kind of dubby swung garage, but then the kind of breakbeat garage thing that started happening in sort of 2001 with DJ Zinc, and then there was that kind of crossover into the actual breakbeat scene, which was where the Decline connection came in, I guess, and is the reason why we were playing it that night. But yeah, what I was making was very much that kind of like, and it was very actually the other thing that obviously became much more significant that came out at that time was grime, and that was just kicking off, and that was, so it was all kind of, I guess, a melting pot of those sort of like 3 or 4 different kind of inputs to it,
and they're all similar tempos, like between 130 and 140. So it's kind of like
that was the beauty of it, I guess. Like, so you could just in the same set play quite a lot of different styles, and that was really how me and Sid were kind of, that was our kind of like our grand theory, you know. We were going to put together all these, like, because the other one was actually, the other one that we were really into was broken beat sort of scene, and actually a lot of it, I didn't realize at the time, but a lot of it was like the German broken beat scene, like Jazz and Over, and people like that, and all the stuff that Giles was playing at the time, which was a bit slower, but if you pitched up to +8 you could kind of get it in there, and also the early Hospital record stuff, like the non-drum and bass Hospital stuff, like so Landslide, the London Electricity stuff that they were making at like 135 or whatever. Funnily enough, I spoke to Chris Goss from Hospital like the other day for the first time in about 15 years as well. But yeah, that early 2000s time was really interesting, man. It really was. I hadn't thought about it. It's literally the first time I've thought about that shit in a long time. But yeah, man, it was, and you guys were doing your thing as well, which was a little bit different, I guess.
Yeah, we were. I think it was just, you know, it was that whole sort of post Asian Underground proto drum and bass thing where we wanted to shake off the sort of the brown flag bit and sort of play in the underground musical sphere. So yeah, it was kind of cross genre, but anything with a sort of an Eastern twang to it was kind of the golden thread, I guess, running through it.
Yeah,
cross genre, but it was heavily sort of drum and bass orientated for sure. Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is that there was, like, going back to that whole thing, I remember you taking me to Forward and I just didn't get it, because the whole halftime dubstep thing, I was just like, this is just fucking intros. When's it going to drop? You know what I mean?
It was like, it was 20 guys in a room at that stage. You know what I mean?
I think it was more like about 4, 5, maybe.
Probably, yeah.
And some smoke and like lots of nodding. I was like, okay. And it was fascinating, because it took me a while to feel it in a dance, you know, really feel that and understand the sort of nodding your head twice bit. And I'm like, I'm a dickhead. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, the whole, like, the evolution of that sound really took, I mean, it took basically 5 or 6 years of that every month, of just like, you know, between 5 and sort of 25 dudes stood in a room once a month on a Thursday nodding their heads. And then after 5 years, suddenly it just became this, like, global phenomenon. Like, the most unlikely thing I think has ever happened in the history of the world. Do you know what I mean? Really, like, I mean, for that thing to become as big as it did was, and it was bizarre, man. Just like, yeah, really bizarre. I still can't really get my head around it now. But
I spoke to Fabio on, like, and he was another dear friend who blessed me with his presence and kept me sane throughout this lockdown because of these chats. But he told a similar story about Metalheads when it first started, and it was very much like it was dead for the first few weeks, completely dead, and suddenly it switched. There's kind of like a parallel. Well, maybe it's not 5 years with Forward, because it only lasted a couple of years, but there was definitely that turning point where it just switched.
Yeah, there was that one summer, wasn't there, of Metalheads, and it just became huge. Which I guess was 94, was it? I don't know.
I was thinking 95. Or 96 was in particular when it just exploded.
Yeah,
Beg
yeah,
your
yeah.
pardon, just burped like a bastard. It's when Goldie took Timeless on tour was 96.
That makes sense actually, because that was when I was doing my A levels, doing my first year of my A levels. Anyway,
Just yeah, all this it's throwing up. So I tell you, like I said, I was sort of sketching out like when did we meet? It's like fuck, it was that Herbal night. And then I remember this actually. This is wicked because I think that there was a whole thing in my head because I was a bit of a tempo snob, and I was like, well, D&B is obviously what you're going to end the night with. And then you played, I think, the third Shiva Soundsystem warehouse party in our warehouse, and you smashed
yeah. That was
fuck
awesome.
out of the place. You smashed the shit out of it at 1:30, and I was like, wow. And I remember you came up to going, you're going to put us on later next time, yeah? And I was like, all right. I remember that vividly, and I was like, all right, words eaten, bro. Fair play. Fuck, I fucked up. I should have put you on later. I'm sorry.
Man, that was so me in my early 20s, that kind of shit. Like, yeah, man, you need to put us on later, man. Like,
it was all part of the hustle, right? You had to fucking do that because otherwise you wouldn't. I mean, obviously, I think for us, like sort of being this weird little brown group of punks was very difficult to get bookings. So we had to just make our own fucking nights. Do you know what I mean? And then it was like we can play Fabric and everywhere else afterward, proved ourselves. You know what I mean? And it was very much like you had to hustle. So I respect that. I was just like, that's wicked. That was fucking awesome. And then I mean that's the other thing. And then so Hotflush was running, and I remember we did this one to our decode, not other decode, not dubstep decode from the other crew, but our decode. And Solji made this tune at around 1:40 for submission on Hotflush, and you were like, but it's not dubstep. And I was like, but what is it then? And I just had this whole, I remember this whole conversation with you. This is fucking years ago. I think 2003, maybe 2004. And it was just like, well, what is it? And it was fascinating because I think that fast forward to 2010, and then the double time came back in, and it was almost going back to breaks, which was just hilarious.
yeah, man. I mean, like I said, the whole the concept of like energy around that music, kind of evolved in a kind of an interesting way. Because I mean, you're absolutely right. Like when the first few years of Forward was very much just like, or eyes down was the thing. It was just like, it's not hands up, it's eyes down.
Yeah.
And then I think basically as soon as it became popular, I mean, this is just a symptom of what happens when you play to a packed crowd and there's a bit of hype. People don't have their eyes down. Do you know what I mean? They put hands up, regardless of what if they're into the music, that's what they will do.
Yeah.
And the eyes down thing was just really a function of it not being very popular. Do you know what I mean? Just a lot of people just a few people turning up. But I remember it must have been around 2000, after the Marianne Hobbs Dubstep Wars thing was like a big turning point.
Yeah.
And I remember playing a show with Benga after a bit after that. And he was just like, you got to bring the energy, man. You got to bring the energy. And like 6 months ago, that would have been, 6 months previous to that would have been just anathema almost. It's almost like you should. That's not what you should be doing at all. Like the whole point is to for it to be it's kind of like it's hype, but it's kind of subdued. Was that was the vibe around it. And then almost overnight, it was just like, way, I
think it went from like being stoned to being a bit up on something else, maybe. That there was a definite energy shift.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. And then you kind of so then you Hotflush was been releasing music from 2003, but then you kind of transitioned out of like dubstep before it really got popular, which is quite interesting to me because before that whole for me In for the Kill, that remix was the one where it just went bang, fully exploded into the mainstream.
I mean, I think for me it was my I guess my journey was it was 2007, and it had become popular in a kind of, with the underground element had become popular, and the Marianne Hobbs thing was in 2006, and then so by middle of 2007 it was there were big shows happening regularly, and it had become a thing. And I got to the point where, that was, good for me. I was playing a lot of shows, and I was making some money for the first time out of DJing. And it got to the stage where I was like, well, I can quit my day job now. And I can either live in London and be poor, or move to Berlin and have some money at the end of the month. So,
right.
And I played Berlin a few times. I knew a couple of people there. So I literally just put my stuff in a bag and drove over. And then as soon as you're out of that London bubble, like you start thinking in a different way, you know, like London is so insular musically, and you know, I mean, yeah, there's a good reason for that. It's like one of the most important music cities in the world, and when you're there, you're kind of in that thing, and it seems to be all that matters. But when you're out of that, when you're taken out of that environment, you start thinking about things in different ways, really. And you know, I'd always been into house and techno, you know, from when I was, you know, when I first started going out raving when I was, you know, 15, 16. I was really into that whole thing, and like, well, yeah, when you're a kid, you just like stuff, don't you? Like, you know, get too bogged down. So I turned up in Berlin, and it was like, you know, unlike anything, you know, the club scene anyway was like, unlike anything I'd really experienced before. It was just kind of tail end of minimal, and I'd never really got into the minimal scene.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting, kind of like juxtaposition out of, you know, what had become a sort of almost a rave scene in dubstep, and the kind of like the drum and bass crossover thing. Well, when I say crossover, I mean like crossover audience, and like
the bass and breaks combining into a thing.
It was moving to a much more of a kind of rave kind of aesthetic. And you know, I got to Berlin and was, you know, suddenly going out to house and techno things again for the first time in a long time, and just really enjoyed it, really. And like, you know, there was this kind of other side of dubstep that had sort of been bubbling under, and was gaining some traction, like the Skull Disco label, and you know, some of the stuff that we were doing on Hotflush, and just the much more, I guess, the stuff that was still quite eyes down, so just the stuff that was still dubby, basically, like really dubby. And there was an obvious kind of, and that stuff had really, you know, struck a chord with the people in, well, a lot of the audience in Berlin, and particularly Hardwax at the shop there, and the guys that worked, well, the guys that they still do, the guys that run Hardwax are, I mean, that whole thing is kind of a very dub oriented organization anyway, like Rhythm and Sound and like Bass Channel and like, you know, Mark and Estes and Maurice von Oswald all were super involved in it. And so the kind of crossover thing that began to start happening between dubstep and techno and minimal was just really interesting to me immediately, you know. And so I guess that's really what kind of like began to just, you know, kind of motivate me in terms of like my DJing, in terms of making music. And as you said, it was just basically as dubstep was becoming this huge thing. So it was like the worst career move you could possibly make. I mean, it's like, you know, it was just, money was just flooding into it. You know, people were getting crazy. I was just like, no, I'm just going to make crossover techno records and like, you know.
But again, ahead of the curve, bruv. Like you had that.
Well,
like...
I mean, that what was kind of funny about that little movement, dubstep techno movement, was it was very short lived, and I think it was really interesting musically what much of the stuff that came out of it, but it really only went on for like 2 or 3 years max. Like it was like, you know, 2007 until really it was done by 2010, 2011.
But then it opened the floodgates for lots of bass artists to start making techno under different pseudonyms.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it definitely moved into something, and there was a kind of like parallel thing going on with the UK funky thing, which was quite influential as well. And like, you know, the night that we started doing at Berghain was sort of initially centered around that dubstep techno thing, but then we brought Roscoe over to play, and we brought, you know, a bunch of the more kind of, I guess, what had become kind of left field dubstep people. And it was a really interesting time, but like I said, it was very short, you know. Like when I think about it now, how quickly a year goes by now. Well, I mean, this is a function of getting older, right?
But, yeah. I was going to say,
but 2.5 years is no time at all. Yeah. That's really all it was. Really.
I mean, that's the same, dude. The whole Blue Note literally was 1.5 years, right? And that changed the whole world. So
exactly,
you know.
yeah, exactly. I mean, like, well, yeah. I mean, like I know many little kind of like things that happened in the 90s. Which, I mean, like, you know, the rage thing, which became junk. I mean, that was a similar amount of time.
Yeah.
And there were different phases of Forward as well, you know. Like I said, so it started in 2001 and was a garage night for a year, quite a successful garage night for about a year and a half, and then it just turned into that kind of like 20 guys in a room thing, like that for 3 years until they started getting the grime MCs down, and that gave it a kind of new, a bit of a sort of a boost, I guess. And then suddenly in 2006, you know, the Marianne Hobbs thing happened, and
just changed everything.
Yeah, exactly.
How was your night taken in Berghain? Like the music that you chose? Because you imagine you have an idea of what Berghain is and what it stands for, and it's very sort of strict techno, and so other genres are often perceived in a different light. Or I guess you anticipate that they'd take it a different way. Was it quite smooth for you?
Well, I mean, the thing about Berghain is like people know, or people's perception of Berghain is the Saturday night, which is, you know, the big techno night, which, you know, opens at midnight. And I mean, nowadays, well, not now, but like up until 2019, went on till Monday morning. But back then it was open at midnight and shut around about midday or 1 p.m. on Sunday.
Right.
And that was kind of what people knew it for. And the Berghain room wasn't open, and it still isn't open on Fridays. It's just Panorama Bar, which is
right.
Them. So basically our night was Berghain, but on a Friday. So it's not, so it was like, you know, it was out of the context of that, you know, straight up techno thing. So people that turned up, that, I mean, obviously we had a lot of people that came because they knew what the music was, but then there was also a fair amount of people who just turned up because it was Berghain.
Yeah.
Or came for Panorama Bar and just would, you know, come in and have a look downstairs or whatever. And, you know, there was, I mean, I'm not going to say it was completely plain sailing, but for the most part, you know, like there was definitely a positive reaction, like in the city, to what we were doing, you know.
Right.
Like it was, I mean, there certainly had been dubstep parties. I mean, as I said, I played in the city a good few times before I turned up to live there. And we did the first party July of 2008. And God, that's a long time ago now. And at that point, it was by far the biggest sort of dubstep show that had been done there.
Right.
I mean, there had been big dubstep shows outside the UK at that point. Like there were, like in Belgium and in the Netherlands, there were really big parties going on.
You've just reminded me, actually. There was this. We were on radio. I was just thinking, what was it doing? Because we just got on Radio 1. I remember doing a two-way with Annie Mac, and we were marveling at the fact that dubstep had moved from room 2 to the main room of Fabric.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly.
Well, room 3, sorry, to
so
room
quickly as well. It's just so almost like, within the space of like 6 months, it was like
everywhere. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so like we were lucky that there was so much interest, and the fact that we were doing like the sound that we were pushing was not that kind of big hype dubstep sound. Yeah.
There was more of a Venn diagram crossover with techno, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we kind of we do a kind of balance. So I think like the first lineup, like I mean, Mala played. So, but I never counted Digital Mystics as that kind of like big hype dubstep sound. And like, so we had him, we had like Shackleton, and Shackleton and Apple Blim, so the Skull Disco guys, and I played, and I think Distance played. So it was very much that kind of, it was basically all people who had been going to Forward since 2003-4, you know. And
on that weird tip.
Yeah, like everyone who played had experienced those years of of monthly eyes down sessions at Plastic People. So yeah.
Did it, like with your own career, right, as Scuba, right? You obviously got some accolade in that whole scene. Then you went to Berlin, transitioned out of dubstep in this whole new thing, and then just made whatever the fuck you wanted to. And the press were always super kind to you. Like, how the hell does that work?
They were for a bit anyway.
Because that's it. You're known for one thing, and then you move, and then like you're a fucking pariah. Do you know what I mean? To a lot of people that transition out of what they're known for. And like, how did you navigate that?
I mean, I mean, to be honest, I didn't really think about it that much.
Okay.
It was not really considered. I mean, you know, as I said, like I made the worst career move ever by jettisoning mainstream dubsteps just as soon as it became popular.
Mm.
Then, as soon as my sort of left field dubstep stuff became popular, I decided I wanted to make house music. So, I mean, and these career moves were not like, it wasn't like I was sitting there mapping it out on a spreadsheet or anything, you know? Like,
Yeah. It was just instinct.
Yeah, and like, you know, there was, I guess this wasn't, I didn't feel like there was a lot of pressure on myself. Like, I mean, I was just happy to be making a living, you know, making music, you know?
Yeah.
It wasn't a case of like, oh, you know, I need to get rich, or I need to, you know, get hit whatever goals or whatever, vernacular people use these days. But like, I mean, I just, yeah, made the music that I wanted to make, really. And I was lucky. I was very lucky, as you say, that people kind of ran with it for a bit. And, you know, I mean, to be honest, a lot of it was motivated by the kind of parties that I wanted to play at. Like, I got very kind of like bored of the whole like ravey rewind culture type like stuff. Like, I've got, you know, because I was, even though we were doing that night at Berghain, the majority of the bookings that I was playing were dubstep shows around the world, and so I was, you know, going to America and going to go around Europe and playing these dubstep shows. And, you know, and I found that, like, actually I much preferred playing at those at parties where, well, just house and techno parties, like you could just roll it out for 4 hours, and you know, and it's just a different mindset of DJ, and I just found myself enjoying that a lot more. And, you know, I mean, these days, I mean, it was just really just a case of having done something for a certain amount of time and being like, okay, well, I feel like a change, you know?
Well, and that's the thing. There was, you know, the thing that I read about you is that you quit touring. And this is the other thing that I want to get to, is you seem to be ahead of the curve, like 2 or 3 times without even realizing. So the first time is leaving. I mean, the first time is like, you know, switching out of dubstep into techno, which was ahead of loads of bass artists, for want of a better description, doing a similar thing. And then also, like, I think doing a multi-genre label and then continuing that, having your own label, aiding those transitions as well, is pretty cool. But then, like, the other things about, you know, ahead of the curve was like quitting touring way before a pandemic enforced it on you.
I mean, that's just a fluke, man, really.
And I've had this conversation with other sort of touring DJs, and like, you know, like you mentioned Benga. So Benny obviously got sober, and going touring after that kind of exuberance sober is just a trial. It can be quite lonely as well, and like, what the fuck am I doing in this hotel room on my own? And then all of that kind of shit. Was that one of the reasons why you quit touring, or was it just,
I mean, I did
that?
The last couple of years of touring that I did were sober. So I quit drinking at shows. I mean, actually, I quit drinking entirely actually for a long time, but I quit drinking at shows because really it was just like, it just made the traveling that much more like just arduous, really. And I'd done it for, I got to the stage where I was like, well, I've done this for so long, and I'm just, you know, it's like, I want to have a Monday again, you know? And it's tough adjusting to it, but to be honest, after a while, it makes it much easier.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have those lost days in airports with a hangover, which are genuinely the worst days ever.
Which is bizarre, because now I really fucking miss those days. I'm just like, oh, just to be fucked up.
You do not miss those days. Trust me, you don't really. Those days are not good, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, so I spent that period touring in a different kind of a way, and then it just got to a stage where I was just like, well, you know what, I didn't feel the need to do it anymore, and yeah, as I said, that turned out to be quite fortuitous in terms of like what subsequently went down. And now I'm kind of like, well, I quite fancy playing some shows again. So, you know, maybe in a few months' time.
Are you ready to return then after this sort of?
I mean, I don't think I'd ever do. I mean, you know, I did over 100 shows a year for 10 years. So I do not fancy that kind of schedule again.
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, no way. But I could do a few.
Yeah, I think, I mean, not to speak for you and not to reveal your age, but at my age in particular, I'm just like, I'm only going to do the gigs I really want to do that are fun. Do you know what I mean? So, like, if I want to do something that's got a certain vibe to it, I'm going to do that rather than that conveyor belt thing is just over for me as well.
Yeah, totally, man. I mean, like, it's fun for a while, and I think it actually helps if you do the whole lifestyle thing, because it just becomes a kind of rolling kind of experience. But it's only like doable for a certain amount of time, you know. I mean, like there are people in there, you know, the guys in their sort of 50s who have been doing it since the late 80s. Jesus, I mean, but you know, fair enough. You know, I mean, if you enjoy it, then why not? You know, I think that's.
Well, I was going to say, like in my early days, there's like punk bands that I used to tour with when I was in a punk band, and they're like hitting their mid-60s now, and I'm just like, fuck, that's amazing to have that much life. You know what I mean? And still love that shit. That's awesome.
I mean, a great show is a great show, right? I mean, like if it was just being on stage, it wouldn't be a problem at all. Like it's the getting
periphery
and all the rest of the stuff that goes with it, really, which makes it tough. But
yeah. But another way you're ahead of the curve, right? And this made me laugh as well, because Anyone But You is one of my favorite tracks of yours, right? Just because that whole euphoric hands up bit, obviously, I mean, it's cheesy, but it reminds me of like the late 90s, early noughties, like a lot.
Right.
And you were on that nostalgia tip way before anyone else as well. And I mean, I had this meeting today at South Bank because we're working on this gig for July 3rd, which I'm really fucking excited about. So I've got this series of open air free gigs happening at South Bank, which is quite cool. So I've been working on that. And nice. I realized I need some fucking new clothes because like I'm wearing the same fucking jogging bottoms for the last 18 months or however long it's been. And it's just like, holy shit, everything's like it's from the 90s again. Like really? The whole fucking vibe out there. Like
actually, I've noticed people are wearing baggy trousers, which I genuinely never thought was going to come back.
Well, I mean, that's it. I'm just like sort of boot cut boyfriend jeans and all that kind of shit.
Man, boot cut, jeez. Wow.
Okay. And like low cut jeans and like skinny tops and all that. Just like, fuck, this is all stuff that I grew up with, you know, in the 90s. And I think that there's that whole cool 90s, early noughties vibe that you've got down. Sorry, bro?
Well, I think
what did you say, bro?
Breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just missed what you said.
Sorry, no, I've got a little bit of a breakup. I was just commenting on the awesomeness of 90s fashion, to be honest.
I mean, mate, I've got like my Casio. I was going to get a Casio G-Shock and get my Puma Mostros out. Like that, I'm just like, fucking, this is great. It's all come back around again. Awesome. In my mid-40s.
I mean, it always does. That's the thing. That's the problem. Like, the longer you... Well, I mean, if you stick around for long enough, you realise everything just got excited.
Oh, mate, you're breaking up. We've got the buffering thing again, the circle of buffering.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is me or...
I like these moments. It's like we're both snake charmers sort of looking at each other like this. Or like sort of uncles at a dance. Hi, you're back. Yeah, we're back. Nice. I think we did some buffering. So, I mean, the obvious question now is like, you've had like your substance kind of thing, the whole SCB thing. What are you going to be making moving forward after this whole fucking dust settles from this pandemic?
So I've got this project coming out, which is a collab with a vocalist called Domini. We've actually had the first couple of things have come out. In fact, the last one came out like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, just saw that. Yeah,
and it's kind of poppy, electro-y, indie rock-y. Yeah, really.
Interesting.
It's very, very different. I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's completely. In fact, it's completely different to.
Were you ever a genre snob? Like, were you ever like, "Fuck that, I'm not going to do that," and then found yourself making a tune like it years later?
No, not really. I mean, I guess my view has always been that there is good music in every genre.
Uh-huh.
Most music is bad, but there is good music in every genre. like basically.
That's wicked. Most music's shit, but there's some gems in everything.
I genuinely think that's true. Like I was listening
awesome.
to like oh god, I can't remember the name of the band, but there was some death metal band that was recommended on Pitchfork the other day, and I just stuck it on and was just like, wow, this is not good. But I know that I know that there is good death metal. So
There's some seriously amazing death metal. Yeah, that was my gateway into drum and bass. Was metal.
really,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I was totally into metal as well. I mean, when I was a kid, I went to see Metallica in '92 and all the rest. God, that really is revealing my age. But
Bruv, I was seeing Biohazard and Napalm Death and shit.
mate, Biohazard is fucking sick, man. Seriously.
No way, you know Biohazard?
Yeah, man. I went to see Biohazard at the LA2, I think, in like '93-ish or something like that. '94.
No way.
Yeah.
I saw them at the Wolverhampton Wolfram.
Okay.
Yeah, back in those days. In I think the same tour. It must have been the same tour because they're from New York. They wouldn't hear that often.
What was the album that came out around then? Like I forget what it was called. But yeah, and like I was super into that stuff. And like actually, I was having a conversation. Well, a brief Twitter exchange about Helmet.
Helmet were amazing. I saw them live too.
Yeah, really, I never saw Helmet.
Wilmer's Rainbow, Milk Toast.
Yeah. Betty album, right?
Betty, yeah. But then you know what? Okay, have you ever heard the Judgment Night soundtrack?
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely.
That was fucking. It's a Helmet and House of Pain as a combo.
We are old guys talking about.
We are fucking old. But that soundtrack is amazing. So it was Urban Discipline was a '92 album.
Right. Okay.
By Biohazard.
What's the one after that?
State of the World Address.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking about. Yeah.
So I think that it must have been that tour then. That was '94.
Yeah.
And then check this out. So Igor Cavalera was there from Sepultura, Max Cavalera's brother.
Yeah.
And so I hung out with them afterwards, and they gave me a Biohazard hat.
Nice.
Which was amazing.
That is fucking cool, man. That is fucking cool.
But then at a squat party in Tottenham Hale, like in around about '99. I was there with my mate, and it was like the whole block of Tottenham Hale was turned into a huge squat. It was ridiculous. They'd taken over the whole fucking factory.
Before they built all those student fucking apartments, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly that. But this huge block was a disused factory. And I was stood there, and I went to the loo. I said to my mate, just watch out for my bag. And it got lifted, and that had that Biohazard hat in.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I was fucking gutted. Yeah, so gutted. I never knew you were into metal. Shit, this is crazy.
I was totally into it. Like Machine Head as well. And
I saw them with Slayer at the Burn My Eyes tour.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, mate, that's mad. I can't believe that you were into all that too.
Yeah, man. I mean, there was so much good music in them. Yeah, I'm still talking about the early 90s, but...
It's, you know what, I was having this conversation with Dan, DJ Fresh Dan, ages ago. And I was just like, I fucking love the 90s. He's like, bro, I fucking love the 90s too. Like, it was just all... It was like analog but digital. Do you know what I mean?
And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the presenter was just like, it was the 90s. Everything was just better. And frankly, yes, it was.
It was. Oh, big up D-Code. We were just talking about you, bruv. Nice one. Welcome, D. But yeah, there was this one. Do you remember when Fear Factory first came out?
Mm-hmm.
And then Pantera did a track called Fucking Hostile.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a biomechanical remix of it, which was, in fact, I'll send it to you. It's fucking dope. So it was literally as if someone from Fear Factory, it wasn't Fear Factory that produced it, but it's as if someone reproduced that. And it's basically fucking D&B.
Right, okay.
And when I heard that, I was like, this is, like, when I went to like sort of the big raves in Birmingham in 93, 94, and there was like drum and bass rooms in the back, I was like, this is the same thing. Like, it's the same energy as all the gigs that I've been to, but the drugs are better and everyone's better looking. You know what I mean? And there's way more diversity.
There are girls.
But also I was the only, like, if it was a photo negative, I was the bright shining star in the dark black night of all these metal gigs. You know what I mean? It was just like Spot the Darkie. It was a bit weird. Yeah. So going to a rave, I was like, woohoo, diversity. And also, girls, energy. Yeah, that was it. So I just went off in that direction.
No, it's funny you say that because I remember Distance saying that, like, one of the things that really influenced him to get into electronic stuff, having been into metal, was going to a Korn show. And I never saw Korn, but apparently he was saying at this Corn gig at Brixton, the drummer had basically an 808 that he just had like hooked up to a pad, and he would just occasionally hit this 808, and this fucking sub would just like go, like an 808. And metal is great, and like the records sound amazing, but like it's pretty rare you get that kind of, certainly back then anyway. I think the sound of metal records now is a bit different, but certainly in the early 90s you didn't get much below 50 hertz, and he was totally into, just totally influenced by that, and that was kind of what led him to be one of those guys with their eyes down at fucking plastic people.
That explains a lot about his music that came out on Reflex.
Yeah,
that was it was just like really aggressive, like, okay, shit, this is like digital metal, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly, and that was literally what he was doing. I mean, like that was his his thing, totally.
That's crazy. And there was also
it's much better than it sounds. I mean, that does digital. That doesn't sound.
It does sound a bit shit. But the thing is, with Korn, like now I'm showing my age. Was like, Fear Factory was before Korn. Korn was for kids. You know what I mean? I'd moved on by then.
Yeah.
But there was, Faith No More, the band. Obviously.
Of course, man. I saw Faith No More supporting Guns N' Roses.
Fuck off! That's a sick. That beats Machine Head and Slayer, bruv. That fucking trumps everything. Faith No More and GNR, sick. No fucking way. But there was like the album they did from the Brixton Academy, which is called You Fat Bastards.
Oh, yeah.
And there's two moments where they're in the middle of tracks, they bust out sort of like commercial covers. So one of them is like at the end of Epic, they like seg into Pump Up the Jam, and Mike Patton's just thinking, it's just fucking. And We Care a Lot with like bits of New Kids on the Block thrown in.
Really nice.
Yeah, and I'm just like, that's fucking cool. That's like really subversive and fucking with shit.
I mean, like Mike Patton, I think, is a really cool guy. Generally, he's got so many other projects as well, hasn't he? Like Mr. Bungle.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah,
cool.
man.
It's a great era. Like, that whole thing. I think 1994 might be like the single best year for music ever. Like genuinely, like there was so much cool shit going on. Just cost so.
See, I'm a 96 fan. I think that having. Yeah,
well, I mean, 94 was like, it was kind of before my time in terms of going out, but it's just in terms of like the music. I mean, I was listening to a lot of music,
right?
Obviously, but I wasn't at the stage where I could go to shows. Well, actually, no, I was going to shows, but I couldn't. I couldn't go raving. I think my first year of raving was 95. But just the music that came out in 94.
And you were in London, right, during all that? Because I was in Birmingham, so it was a vastly different experience. We had to sort of like get whatever we could.
Yeah. I mean, I was very lucky to be in London, certainly in terms of music, for sure.
What were your first clubs then? What was the first places you went?
So, Camden Palace, which is now Coco. I used to go to a lot of drum and bass raves there. I used to go to Innovation at Camden Palace a lot. I used to go to Club UN for One Nation. And then like Gardening Club for house and techno, and like Bagley's a lot for loads of different kinds of shit. Like there was obviously hardcore and jungle stuff there, but there was also a lot of like house and techno at Bagley's as well. So I used to go to Bagley's a lot for like loads of different nights. Heaven, used to go to Heaven a lot. There was a kind of like sort of proto. I'm going to say trance, but not Dutch trance. Like a kind of, I guess it was like deep techno and trancey stuff called Megatripolis, which I used to go to all the time when I was like 15, 16. I used to go to Turnmills loads actually. I used to go to like Social, and I went to Trade a couple of times. And
that's so awesome. I'm so jealous of all of that, because we had like 4 clubs in Birmingham that we used to have to sort of go to.
There were some good ones though in Berghain. I remember reading about them in like fucking Mix Mag and thinking, Birmingham sounds all right.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there was a lot of like Q Club was obviously the big one. So like big fuck off techno raves, and then the sort of other genres would be in the periphery in different rooms.
Did you ever go to any of the proper techno stuff? Do you like with Regis and Surgeon and all that stuff?
See, I don't really remember very much, because for me it was like, let's just get the fuck out and go to stuff. And
it does, to be fair.
And then it was like a miracle that there was like Planet V in the big room at Q Club when like when the Planet V album came out in '99. That was like a big deal because it was like the first time there's a big non-gangstery D&B room, because it was also a bit hairy, sort of.
And seriously, okay, so basically, I went to uni in Bristol, right? So and my first year at uni was '98, and I remember going to Hysteria at the new Trinity Centre in Bristol in 1998. And it was the scariest experience of my life, like probably to date, probably to this day. Like, we literally walked in and there was a group of girls kicking the shit out of another girl. Like, literally.
Shit.
It's like, what? And like 15 minutes later, it's not like a bunch of guys rushed the door. Like, and was just like, I mean, the security was just like, no, fuck that. Like, man, it was pandemonium. Fucking crazy. And like MC Bassman was just like inciting violence, like on the fucking mic. I mean, like, Jesus.
Yeah, there was a bit of that, and I think it was really interesting. I was having this conversation yesterday, where when we were planning our own sort of gigs and stuff here, like sort of like garage, obviously up to sort of So Solid and so, you know, some drum and bass had a gangster element, some garage had a gangster element, and then you add sort of skin color in it as well. And so trying to book gigs was like a fucking uphill battle, because it was always like, are you playing anything fast and like ravey? Now we're not having that. Is it going to be a bunch of non-white people? Oh, right, we've got issues there. So it's like, fuck. So we had to sort of navigate all of that too. But to be fair, there was sometimes a good reason for it, because it would kick off. Like, there's, you know,
yeah, man. I remember when like the first Garage Nation night in Bristol, it was just a mass brawl. Like, it was literally people like throwing chairs and shit, man. Like, it was just like fucking, and like, you know, I think like the kind of, I mean, obviously the race thing became a kind of like a pretty lazy police shorthand for it. And like, I think like, I mean, I don't think it had anything to do with race really, because I mean, you know, all those parties were, they were mixed racially. And it wasn't like, you know, you could say like, oh, there's people with dark skin there's going to be trouble, like, you know. And there was I mean, I don't know if you saw that. There was an article in Resident Advisor a while back, and the author of it made some comment in it about how there was basically violence outside early jungle raves, right? And, which was just a statement of fact, really, you know. Yeah. And having been to those raves, like, you know, like there absolutely was all that kind of shit going down, but it wasn't like the black or brown people were causing the violence necessarily at all. I mean, I remember the guys we were scared the most of coming out of Innovation at Cannon Palace were the fucking Irish kids in Camden. They would kick the shit out of you, man. Like, Jesus Christ, just for that. First, wouldn't even try and rob you. They just fucking kick your head in.
Just for fun.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I mean, you know, and I think that's the thing about youthful exuberance, right? It can manifest in everyone at that point. Yeah. And also, there's fuck all else to do except for just kick off, I guess.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't know what it's like being a kid now, but like, you know, it was just one of those things that you had to keep an eye on.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's interesting to sort of see, like, I mean, you know, there's that whole thing at my first Glastonbury was in like 2000 when Bowie played. It was the last free Glastonbury, right, where you could, well, I say free, but everyone just ran in before the super fence and all that. And it was a shit show. It was like 3 times capacity and just fucking mayhem. And there was a lot of robbery and a lot of just rushing people and stuff. But also in that sort of anarchy, there was some calm. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like this odd, it was calm anarchy. It was really bizarre. And I remember like thinking to myself then in my young sort of naive state, like, this might be a good way for the world to work. And I was like, nah, I like a bit of order. But yeah, I mean, going back to 96, I can't believe we're going to this year by fucking year, bro. Jesus. But going back to that, like, I remember like the criminal justice bill coming in and killing raves, and then super clubs happened. But then as far as I understand it, and I could be completely wrong, but suddenly A&R in all these record labels had to adapt to all this new music and signed a fuckload of amazing acts. So you'd have like Massive Attack, Tricky, Portishead, Ronnie Size signed. You know, everyone got signed basically.
Yeah,
which was awesome for pop music. But
yeah, I guess there was probably majors catching up to the underground as there often is.
Yeah.
You know? Like it's kind of striking actually the amount of big underground acts that were on majors in sort of like the early to mid 90s, like Underworld and Orbital and obviously Prodigy on XL, but like there was a lot of I guess
big signings, yeah.
Smart A&Ring. I don't know what the deals were like. Probably.
I
not great,
mean, sometimes there's some ridiculous A&Ring where they'd sign people not knowing what they were signing them for, but just for the name.
Yeah, totally. I know that definitely still goes on now. Like, I mean, the average major label A&R department isn't, probably as clued up as it might be. But
have you ever come across anything like that where majors have come after you for shit?
Yeah, I mean, I had like after we did Personality, like, and it was kind of peak interest, I guess, and I kind of.
That was a great release though as well. That was so diverse. There was like some big tunes, like Anyone But You. It's a big fucking tune.
Yeah, but
I might pull that out on the 3rd of July. It's that good. I'm just like, it's summary and like, woohoo.
Yeah. Well, thanks. But yeah, that was kind of like, I guess, like I said, kind of peak interest in what I was doing, and there was, I mean, I did the whole kind of like getting taken out to dinner by A&Rs and all the rest of it, and it never really, I never got to the stage where I felt like this is. I was never really totally sold on the idea of doing it. Do you know what I mean? I got on the one hand, like, I quite like at the time I was like, I'm quite sort of flattered by the attention and like, I quite like the idea of being on Sony or whatever. But then like, what is this actually going to be like musically? What kind of hoops am I going to have to jump through?
Yeah.
To make this work? Because the thing about signing to a major is like you're stepping into the machine basically, and you have to basically do the business, otherwise you will just fall through the cracks, and you can quite easily find yourself locked into a deal where you're essentially trapped, and if you don't have the support within the A&R support within the company, you can quite easily just find yourself like, well, I'm like, your career can be just lost, So you've really got to be confident about where you want to go, and you need that A&R support within whatever label you sign. So, and as we said, like quite often within those A&R departments, like there's an element of just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Which as an artist isn't, if you're one of those things being stuck at the wall and you don't stick, that's like I said, not ideal.
Not great, yeah, because then you're fucked.
So
but then also you kind of built your own machine though with your own label though, right? You kind of built your own machine with your own label, so you've already got that hat on.
Well, I mean, like certainly now I'm very like I'm relieved that that's the
case.
That's the approach that I took. I think that it's well, as Prince taught us, owning your own masters is like really important,
Yeah, all your masters own you. Yeah, that's
right.
That's
so like, I mean, and I kind of speak with like slightly.
There he is.
I kind of like got two hats on when I say this, because I try and sign people to my label, and I think we kind of add value to people's careers, but at the same time, like I do think it's important to have a degree of control over it. And like I said, I have no regrets about not signing to a major.
Yeah. I mean, Blame told me a story a couple of weeks back on this with, Music Takes You, the big Blame tune.
Yep.
And it had Seal's vocal on it, right? And,
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes, the original, which I've just fucking got. It's basically got like a whole line from Seal on Music Takes You at the very beginning.
Okay.
And it became massive.
Didn't clear the sample or something, didn't they?
Well, exactly. So he was saying that Warner got in touch with Moving Shadow and said, look, Seal wants to sing the tune, right? And they were like, fuck, okay, wicked. But we want to sign Blame.
Right. Okay.
And he was 17 at the time. And he said like, nah. And then he said that basically that was before Kiss from a Rose happened. So if he had signed, he would have been just fucked.
Right.
And Seal's career would have gone from singing over rave tunes like Killer to becoming Seal, the R&B artist of Kiss
right.
My Rose.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Which is quite a fascinating tale, I think. That's like...
Absolutely. I mean, that first Seal album is amazing. It's really great. But yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, though. You have these points in your career, which are, you know, potentially sliding doors moments. You know, like there are, you know, sometimes it's the decision you take. Sometimes it's just the way things fall into place. Sometimes it's a decision that someone else takes. But yeah, I mean, I have kind of mixed sort of feelings about, you know, having been in a position where like there was that degree of interest in me and it ultimately not going as supernova as I, you know, at the time was hoping it was going to, but also, you know, thinking, well, actually I've still got control of everything. I've still got my label. I still own all my music and I'm still able to do it without too much pressure. So, you know, there's a balance to be drawn.
And you can release whatever the fuck you want to, whenever the fuck you want to do it.
Yeah,
like,
I can do
your electro indie thing.
An indie rock vanity project, which is what I'm currently.
That's fucking cool. Nice one, bruv. Look, thank you so much for today's chat, man. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna go run out in the sunshine and have some more drinks, I think, because I'm nicely licked from like this bit of tequila I've been drinking. So
yeah,
this has been awesome.
But it's great to catch up, man. It's been
you too, bro. Yeah, man, absolutely. We'll be in touch, and let me know when you're in London next, and not just hiding in Hackney for a year.
Well, when they change the quarantine laws, I'll come back. But like at the moment, it's 10 days, you know. Like so, I mean, it's supposed to be changed by now. But as soon as they change it, I'll be back, man.
Nice. All right, let's stay in touch, and then like I'd love to do this in real life and all that.
Absolutely, mate.
It'd be great. Well, big love, brother. Take care, man. Good to see you after fucking like 15 years or whatever. Nice one. Big love, bro.
Thanks, man. Bye. Thanks for having me. Cheers.